I'm going to speak very briefly to give you some background on myself and the circular service that we've set up, and then I'm going to explain the social benefits that we've seen come from the service and also give some guidance on how we're trying to capture and measure those. To give you some context, my name's Anne, has already been introduced, but I've worked in the waste and the environment sector for over 20 years, the last 10 years of which have been more focused on reuse and trying to prevent waste arising in the first instance and working on developing services to help deliver that. The company I'm with here today is Premier Workplace Services. They've come into this from a really unusual angle because they're actually a commercial relocation company that help businesses move and change. But from that, they ended up managing lots of large quantities of redundant, valuable assets in the workplace. And as you can see, they provide different services from refurbishment and IT relocation. But the area that I'm going to focus on is around the office furniture and IT reuse. It became apparent quite a few years ago that really good, valuable office furniture and equipment was simply going to waste or ending up in landfill. And we saw our job as developing a service that would help look at the decision points that made the waste arise and see if we could develop a service that overcome those and help make reuse easy. And the first part of that was really taking our knowledge and experience of IT asset management and auditing and bringing that to furniture. So the starting point was around prevention. And so we developed a service that would give management information back to building and property managers around the office furniture and equipment they had, and then also providing a storage and retrieval service, which in London, the office space and property space is so expensive, but to have a facility where they could have all of their assets stored and called in and out readily, it offered real opportunities for waste prevention and reuse. But bringing the social benefits of this, what became really clear is there was economic benefits because the assets had quite a lot of value. But from a social perspective, there was immediately an increase in employment. The moment we changed the way building clearances would happen, traditionally a large skip would come and all of these assets would be thrown in it, perhaps some recycling would occur. By carrying out asset management auditing, treating the furniture as a resource in the first instance, we were able to deliver some job creation. But that was just the starting point. A massive part of what we do in terms of circular services is help make the offering sustainable and commercial. There's lots of great work going on in the third sector and lots of different initiatives, but we wanted to operate at scale and actually make sustainability business as usual. So when we resell what are used assets, we present them as good as new. And this is our retail channel that we have for office furniture. By presenting it in this way, we achieve two things. One, we're able to get some really good financial value back from redundant assets, and that helps drive this business cycle because there's a commercial benefit for businesses engaging with us. But secondly, we now encourage larger organisations to actually go, well, why are we buying new? Because actually there's some really good quality assets that look just as good as new. This side of the business has grown significantly as well. And again, the skills and the employment are the initial direct social values that are coming out of this, but there's a lot more too, and I'll touch on that in a moment. A key reason that so many good quality assets are ending up in waste is despite people wanting to donate and find better homes for them, there's not actually the logistics or the infrastructure always in place to help that happen. I went out and I spoke to facility managers and property managers and said, why are all these assets ending up in skips? And the truth is they're a last minute consideration, and often there's not the resources or logistics to connect larger quality asset owners with the smaller third sector. So we set up the Giving Back project. What we did is we went proactively to speak to charities, schools, social enterprises and said, what assets could you use? What's your wish list? We looked, and when we had this information and armed with this, when we were carrying out building clearances in advance, we already were able to pre-identify future homes for these assets. So rather than running around trying to find someone who wants 200 chairs next week, we've actually got a proactive program, and this is now diverting thousands of items every year into smaller charities at no cost to them. Now, In terms of the value for a charity that's got their staff sat on garden furniture, I can't really quantify the value of being in a more comfortable working environment. But for many of the charities, such as the homeless charities, we're taking really lovely furniture from top banks and corporate organisations and putting them directly into move-on accommodation for the homeless hostels, and so it's about providing a mechanism that delivers that value. The last sort of key area of the circular offering sits with the Renew Centre. This is a facility that we operate in North London, and it started about 6 years ago, but now we have 15 members of staff full-time refurbishing, repairing, remanufacturing office furniture and equipment. And there's been some amazing transformation in the skills of the people that are involved in this project, because we're learning skills and traditional skills that are actually being lost in this country. I enjoyed watching a team of young men with their first sewing machines. They probably hadn't seen them before. But the assets that we're dealing with, particularly from the corporate environment, they've got so much involved in them in terms of the waste. So actually, from the carbon benefits, which we measure using the RAP figures, so we're able to produce guidance on the carbon savings that are made, but also the job, again, it's the job creation and the well-being, the sense of well-being that the staff have from doing something good from what would be considered waste otherwise. And our fight here is to change people's perception around reuse, because the more that we can make this business as usual, the easier it is to try and move circular business initiatives into the normal working environment. So as you can see, when we present redundant assets looking like this, they become an opportunity for people to think about how they procure. The most recent area we've developed is a range of services that enable the reuse, repair and donation of IT and AV equipment. There is just huge amounts coming out of buildings in London and across the UK, sometimes only months old. We set this up and we launched this in 2017, and the team is growing. We've developed an IT apprenticeship scheme for engineers around building their skills in IT repair and reuse. They aren't skills that were existing before, and what's really good is the team there are so enthusiastic to be doing something really practical and actually upgrading the IT. They're using their knowledge and enthusiasm to take two redundant pieces and put them together and make something that's got value, which again, these are all the different metrics that we're using. At the moment, I've just captured this list of where we think these circular services are delivering social value. As you can see, there's increased employment. We've talked about the fact we've developed apprenticeships around the IT reuse, and we'd love to do more of that as well. The roles we're creating are skilled. They're more skilled. We've got CNC operators, furniture designers, cabinet makers, and so we're being able to upskill a workforce. Most of the furniture that we deal with wasn't made in the UK. Most of it's made abroad, but we're remaking it in the UK. And actually, when we're looking at a piece of furniture that's become redundant, we can see where the points of wear and what's gone wrong with it. And then when we remake it, we overcome those. So actually, we remake them better. Oh, that's just my opinion. There is obviously massive reduction in carbon. That's a big driver for lots of people, and we can give statistics to back that up, but not just in the fact that the items have got a longer life, but also in the transportation of them. And obviously, the extent of furniture poverty in this country is just a huge, huge problem. So by taking these assets and being able to distribute them to the charity schools and social enterprises, we've not quantified those savings yet, but we make nominal assessments of it. But I think trying to capture and grow and understand the value of what's being achieved is really important. Libby, who's going to be talking later, will talk about the Circular Office initiative that we're part of, and that's really helping from an awareness front. From our perspective, we're feeding into a piece of work that's currently being carried out by the Institute of Workplace and Facilities Management. They're looking to understand how different business practices like this can actually deliver social value and understand what the metrics are. So I don't know if any of you have worked or come across the social value portal before, but that's a mechanism that's being used in some public sector contracts to actually understand and quantify the financial impacts of increased employment, apprenticeships, donations, and I'm trying to help them capture that for circularity as well. So there are some metrics out there, and the framework that we're working on developing is to try and encourage that in procurement contracts, so that you can start to have a real sense of value around good business practice.